Today for Learning Now TV, we've come to the Prince's Trust. We're going to be talking to Tom Boyeson-Corballis about their use of the Apprenticeship Levy. In corporate L&D, we're not very good at making best use of the Apprenticeship Levy, so it's going to be really interesting hearing from Tom how in the third sector they're doing great work with the levy to invest in their people. Obviously in the third sector there's often challenges about how much you can pay people, how many bonuses, how many perks, but the levy and the investing in people is a really good way of showing people that you really do care. So let's go and find out what Tom's got to tell us today. So Tom, the levy, you're making good use of it. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, we are. This is about just over a year ago now, and we had a small amount in the levy, and we wanted to do something with that, but it wasn't really enough to really get anything big and bold out of it.
So you were contributing yourself. So you've got how many staff in total?
About 1,000
okay, so you've
colleagues
got 1,000.
across the UK.
Okay, but you could get more? How's that work? How do you get more money?
Yes, so there was a rule change I think it was about last year, around April time, where other organisations can donate a certain amount of levy money to another organisation. Now we joined forces with Tesco, and Tesco were very kind and very generous and donated a portion of their levy, which was more than we really could have hoped for.
How wonderful.
Yeah.
So what have you done with that levy? How many people has that helped of those 1,000 colleagues around the country?
So about 300 people.
That's amazing. So you've got 300 apprenticeships.
Yes, that's right. So what we really wanted to do is something with leadership and management, because until then we never really had a joined up and consistent offering, and we really wanted to do something because it's so important. So we have a level 3 apprenticeship, and that's for sort of frontline managers who work with, we call them executives, but sort of youth workers.
Right.
And then a level 5 for heads and senior heads. And so that's a year programme. So
you're really getting to the bottom of some of the issues that corporate L&D have. It's management staff, it's frontline staff stuff, and you're using that money really wisely, it seems. So what's the sort of, you're part way through, what's going on with that? What's the feedback that you're getting?
Well, so I've been doing some interviews recently, so I do filming for the L&D team, and I've been filming some interviews and testimonials, and the feedback that I'm getting is people feeling really empowered, having been invested in and having been sort of almost given permission to take some time aside to develop themselves, and they're actually, especially sort of, I think we talk about it a lot in L&D, is self-reflection, and they're really getting that benefit from that, and meeting other colleagues as well that work in other places that they might not normally. So
what I'm hearing really is that the benefit of the spend is not just about getting better managers, but actually this must be pulling the organisation together. It must have knock-on effects, ripples throughout the rest of the organisation. I love the fact that you talked about people feel valued because they're being invested in.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that the sort of thing that you're hearing? Is it coming out in other ways? The benefit of L&D, really, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really useful for people to see that investment being made, because typically in the past, budgetary constraints, it's very third sector, and having the apprenticeship levy, that's money can only be spent on apprenticeships. So it's not like we're taking money away from any other pot. It's all money that has to be spent on that. So I think that was really good.
So how are you actually spending it? Are you partnering with somebody? Are you doing it yourself? What's the story? I mean, 300 people through what programs?
So there's 2 programs, a level 3 and a level 5. That's been developed in conjunction with another partner called Rico. So they were an existing partner, and we approached them because we saw that they were offering these apprenticeships. We have helped develop some of the content for that as well.
So there's an ownership thing from the internal L&D.
Yeah. So there's a certain amount of, that's Selena, who works in our Birmingham office. She has been working with Rico to develop that, and that's a certain portion of, I think it's one of the 12 workshops, is all Prince's Trust content. And then I've been working on making the workbooks for those programs, stuff like that. So it's a big collaboration, really.
It's really lovely to hear the joint agencies coming together and supporting. It's something that perhaps in corporate L&D we don't do as well as we might. We probably could work better on the collaboration piece. Now, can you just talk to us a little bit about what are the practicalities of that collaboration? How does it work with RICO? You said they're an existing partner. You've already got relationships with them. Is it down to the people, or can you talk us a little bit through that?
Yeah, well, being part of the charity sector, and this is before my time as well at the Prince's Trust, we've always needed to make the most of these partnerships because, again, money is tight and we want as much of that money to go to young people as possible. So spending money on certain equipment might not be seen as a priority. So we get some of that donated by other partners. So RICO's been a partner in that sense for a long time. We have a lot of equipment in our offices, printers and so on from them. And then we saw that they also do apprenticeships, so we approached. So you kind of piggybacked
on theirs and got your own stuff in there as well.
Absolutely.
It's a really lovely way to hear that that's working. And I guess for our corporate L&D viewers, they could perhaps think about how they could spend their CSR stuff by helping the third sector in that type of way. I mean, old printers, sounds like we wouldn't need it, but actually you could really make the benefit of it.
Absolutely, and especially, the Apprenticeship Levy money as well.
What a gift!
Absolutely. I'm not going to say the exact amount, but it was enough to make a huge difference. And that could be a great CSR initiative.
Yeah. Well, big up to Tesco's for that. What about other things that you're doing at the Princess Trust? It can't all be, or is it all just apprenticeships? 300 people that you're responsible for putting through is huge, but you're the digital guy here, so what other things are you doing?
Well, so we're developing a bit of a strategy at the moment, but the first stage of that is looking at our existing offering and seeing what of that can be made digital. And what has to be face-to-face.
And what's the driver for digital? Why are we not just, we're in a lovely classroom environment here today, why aren't we just all bringing people in here?
It's a money saver is one big thing. And also I think, if you ask anyone how they learn, they're going to say, the first thing that they'll probably say is YouTube. That's certainly where I go when I want to learn something. So I make videos here and I make animations here, and it's great. And I think people do engage with that, especially if they don't have time to travel 200 miles to go to a workshop.
So it goes back to that thing you were saying earlier about spending the money wisely.
Absolutely.
You just have a bit of a cuter view of it when you're spending charity money rather than corporate money, I guess.
Yeah, and that is certainly a feeling. I've worked in the private sector as well. And even though I worked for a smaller company, it did seem that money was sort of a bit more freely available. And I completely understand that in the charity sector you have to make sure that it's all sort of by the book and goes to the right place. So we're trying to do more while spending less.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story about the levy. It's so refreshing to hear a levy story out there that's working, because we just don't get that as much as we should. So thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you very much for having me.
The levy then, no excuses to our corporate L&D friends to get out there and make use of it. If they can do that in the charity sector, in the third sector, then what are we doing? Really question yourselves. Go and speak to people in your finance department and just find out how much is in your levy pot and what could you do with it, because it might be more than you think. Until next time on Learning Now TV, thank you so much for joining us today.